we recommend you take this moment to do what we're about to do, which is enjoy an Alp.
Вот у нас во дворе горит. Вообще машина, если...
How are you, Mr. President? Fine, just fine, thank you. How are you? So good to see you. From the embassy. Okay.
With more changes at DOD, and this time an update on COVID-19 and reinstatement. We all know that the previous administration issued unlawful orders on mandatory vaccines on an experimental vaccine, COVID-19. You know it, we know it. We're doing everything we can, as quickly as we can, to reinstate those who were affected by that policy. It hasn't been perfect, and we know that. We're having an ongoing conversation with you to get it right, working with the White House as well. We want anyone impacted by that vaccine mandate back into the military, people of conscience, warriors of conscience, back in our formations. We hear you, and we're working to get updated guidance as quickly as possible. So kind of here's where we are on more guidance we're providing right now. So in January, the president issued his executive order. We jumped right on it. In February, I directed the department to take corrective action regarding this specific department's unfair, overbroad, unnecessary COVID vaccine mandate. You know, we apologize then, apologize now for how it was done, and we want to fix it. So today, I'm signing a memorandum that directs the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness to provide additional guidance to the boards that are reviewing these cases concerning the review of requests from service members and former service members adversely impacted by COVID-19 vaccine mandate. The guidance also will facilitate the removal of adverse actions on service members solely for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine, including discharge upgrades and less than fully honorable discharges for individuals separated for refusing to take the COVID-19 vaccine. So we're trying to scrub all that, clean all that up. We'll also facilitate appropriate remedies for service members who have suffered additional career setbacks resulting from the previous administration's unlawful vaccine mandate. So that original EO addresses the unfair, since rescinded COVID-19 vaccine mandate imposed on warfighters during the previous administration. We know how bad it was. You know how bad it was. And through this guidance, which I encourage you to check it all out directly, because it's an update going even further than what we've done in the past, this memo is providing supplemental remedies for service members and veterans negatively impacted by the DOD defunct COVID-19 disease vaccine mandate. So more guidance here that we think is really important in getting this right, and we welcome you all back as quickly as possible.
Sorry about that, guys. Welcome back to the SCIF. Busy day today. We are. There's a saying, "Something in elbows." I won't say that on TV, but we are busy here at CDM. A lot of news flow, and we're going to get it all to you today. Secretary Hegseth said the magic words: illegal orders. This is huge. The whole internet blew up last night. I'm in chats with all these guys who were, harmed by the vaccine, and they are just overjoyed. I mean, there's joy in Mudville, as I said on X this morning, that he has said the words illegal orders, and what he's done to fix the problems of the guys who are trying to get back in, who had their careers damaged. There's just a lot of happiness on the outside, and this is a big, big, big win, and we need to celebrate it and keep pushing. We have a busy show today. Tom Teague's going to come on in a couple minutes. We're going to talk markets because a lot going on with the tariffs there, and he's got a lot of insight. Mark Bashaw is going to come in at the bottom of the hour and talk. He was harmed by the vaccine mandate, and you're going to hear from him. And then Joshua Klein in the second hour, we're going to talk about the Iran war. He's with Breitbart, but close to the Trump administration. Today is April 25th. Here's your mission brief. Hegseth says the magic words, illegal orders. The vaccine was illegal, the vaccine mandate. And now the Blob has killed a Russian general as Witkoff meets Putin in Moscow. So the guy was blown up in the Moscow suburbs, car bomb, and right. That's kind of like out of The Godfather when they bring the fish to the guy and say he's sleeping with the fishes. This is a direct threat to Trump, to Putin, to Witkoff, and the whole peace process. So we're going to talk about that. China blinks on tariffs. I'm going to go into that with Tom Teague. And sex camp for 9-year-olds in Colorado. They want to diddle with your children. We'll talk about that. And then Witkoff meets Iran in Oman, trying to find a peace deal there. So a lot happening. I'm going to bring in Tom Teague right now. Tom, how you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you?
Good, man. So we were talking last night. You think that Trump has played into China's hands on this tariff thing? Did I read you right?
I think that they underestimated the sort of international coalition with that and the power that China has.
Yeah.
When they started this like shock and awe view of how to deal with tariffs. And I think that, I'm not going to try and say that there's 4D chess being played here, but I think that Trump thought it would elicit very fast reactions from some of our trading partners. And, I certainly know less than they do about what's going on with our trading partners.
Right.
I can see headline numbers, but, Japan, their major trading partner is China over US. Mexico is a huge trading partner. I've done some work looking, all the sort of flows, and the headline numbers are not that big. I mean, again, I don't think this is just, and I'm not trying to dodge your question, but I don't think this is just a matter of the actual trade balances. I think it has a lot more to do with China's hegemony and challenging that, and challenging sort of the left's, the globalists, the WEF's economic strangle on the world, and sort of blowing that up. But I don't think that, if anything, Trump anticipated that this sort of dollar sell-off would precipitate from this. I think he kind of thought, that markets would adjust. And they said it didn't matter, but we all know it does matter. It especially matters when the bond market's getting whacked. And like, if you look at the foreign ownership of treasuries, like, bills don't really matter. I mean, they matter from a funding perspective, but what affects normal Americans, mortgages, corporations borrowing, all that stuff is really notes and bonds. And foreigners have
for our audience, the longer term securities.
Yes, correct. Like, notes are basically from 1 year to 10 years, and then bonds are after that, right? So foreigners own in aggregate, I think, around, high 20% of that. So it's a meaningful amount. It's not everything, but it's a meaningful
impact the market materially, right?
Yeah. So I think there's been like a coordinated dollar sell, buyer strike of US denominated assets, including equities. I mean, for the last 10 years, I think probably, I've seen like huge numbers, but foreigners sort of wealth in equity markets 70% of that was in the US. So our markets had huge tailwinds from foreign investors. And I think that there's been a big unwind in the last, month and a half of those assets. Part of it's the yen trade. Part of it's just the sort of remilitarization and view that Germany was going to be spending more money. But I think that, like, from what I've seen, which is really interesting, is there's like sort of this new kind of anti-American kind of leftist Europe pro-China coalition forming.
That was going to happen anyway, right? I mean, this was their plan. They were just waiting until this happened, then they had it ready to go, I think.
No, I think that's the case, and I think that was their reaction to what Trump did. And like I said, I don't think it's just about tariffs. I think it's about, you mentioned earlier, the stuff going in the military, the stuff going in the universities. I think Trump is a big disruptor, and I think what he's doing is he's turning the U.S. away from, what's happened in the past and this trail we're going down to everyone be sort of a slave of China. The other thing I think he realizes, and I certainly realize this, I don't think a lot of people on Wall Street do, is we opened up sort of as a nation in June 2021. China did not really open until December 2022. That was like 15 months later, or maybe even longer. So yeah.
Well, they had the zero COVID policy, right? I mean, they were like
correct, but why did they have that, right? And I think we saw this. Like, so if you look at our trade balance with China, we import like $550 billion worth of goods from China every year, like around 300. We have a $290 billion trade deficit, and we have $300 billion of consumer goods imported from China. It's not a huge number because the cost of goods sold on the S&P 500 is around 12 trillion. But then you start looking at all the other trade that comes through Canada, comes through Mexico. Everyone's biggest trading partner, China's in the top 3 or 4, or either the top. So when they slowed down opening on COVID, and we had demand from opening up on COVID, and Joe Biden spending money like a drunken sailor with all of his deals and all of his acts that he did, we had demand all of a sudden, and there was no supply because everyone in the world is so reliant on China. So I think that made our government, it made Trump at least understand that we don't want to be put in that position again, because look at what happened to interest rates. Look at what happened to inflation, right? And that's even the Fed, who I'm not a huge fan of. They've said that this was really, the inflation was about supply chains. And it's not just our trade with China, it's everyone else's trade with China and our trade with everyone else. So what Besson and Trump are doing right now is trying to move away from that so that we don't have this situation again, and China can do this to us. And to make an assumption that China isn't behind the scenes, like strategizing how to take down the US, it's just naive.
Everything you see happening, including, what's going on with the EU and China. I think the India-Pakistan thing was from China. I think they instigated that. That was like a in your face. Okay, you're going to do this. We can start nuclear wars.
Yeah.
So
correct.
Anyway, what do you China did blink this morning though, right? They're saying they're going to remove some tariffs on certain products because their factories, literally, there's a lot of press coming out on Zero Hedge and others that the factories are empty. They're closing. The ports are empty.
Well, there's a huge amount of propaganda from China that like they're this like world power and we're indebted and we don't spend our money on our country, and they do.
Yeah.
China, if you look at their sort of local level debt, it's estimated between 112 and 148% of GDP, like that, including their government debt. So they're very indebted, like all of these countries are.
Much worse than us, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it's artificially low yields, and that's why people won't buy it. And so a lot of it's manipulated, but it's kind of like a Potemkin village, what you see there. Right behind it is a huge amount of debt.
It's a Ponzi scheme. You've got all these loans, and then the collateral's used like 45 times. Right,
exactly. It's like shadow banking stuff. Yeah. And so I don't think China they're trying to demonstrate that they have this like ridiculously strong hand. We can't see what's going on in there. They were also, they've also been denying negotiations with us with tariffs where they denied COVID, right?
Yeah.
And the origins of COVID. So like, I don't believe you can trust anything that China says. And I also, not only are they responsible for COVID, but in my opinion, they're responsible for the inflation we saw, as I pointed out, their lag of opening up. When we were opening up after COVID caused inflation, that supply chain, them gumming that up. And I think that's a huge problem. And we have to move away from that. Apple's saying they're going to manufacture all of their cell phones that they sell to the US, which is about 40%, I believe, of their cell phones.
In India, they're moving it from China to India. Right?
Yeah. And so I think there's definitely going to be winners. And, the media is largely intertwined with Hollywood, and Hollywood's movies are part of this. Like China said, they're going to ban the movies. So the media is being overly critical and dramatic about what this is going to do.
Well, there's a total narrative going on.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
We've been all over that. I mean, it's like legacy biz media narrative that China is going to win and Trump's stupid.
Right.
That's
right.
essentially it.
Right. And I mean, that board that Trump pulled out, maybe that wasn't good optics, but if you drill down, that's not what it was really about. It's about, we're sitting here giving all of these countries military umbrellas. They have trade imbalances with us. They have high tariffs. There's things that we can't get in their markets. So it's kind of like you're going out with friends and you always pay for their dinner every single time. At some point, you're like, okay, I'm done with this. You need to start paying for some of this.
Well, there was a poll out of Finland that I watch all this news from Europe, and it's so slight, skewed. I mean, they were saying we can't trust America anymore because because they're pulling their military out or whatever, and we can't be defended. And I'm like, dude, defend yourselves, right? I mean,
right.
What's up with that? Yeah.
Well, I have a friend who lives in Sweden I spoke to this week, and he's pretty psyched that they're starting to invest in their military. Like he's kind of the mind, like this is something we need to do for our own security. And I think it's great. I mean, I absolutely think it's great. Like I welcome that. So
totally. Tom, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Sure.
Thanks.
Government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
True life Alp story. I got a call from a friend of mine yesterday, honestly, true story, who said his girlfriend had just broken up with him over Alp. He wouldn't stop. And I thought to myself, that's kind of sad. And he said, no, it's not sad. Imagine if I'd married her. Now I know. I was saved. Then the next day, this same friend is driving at twice the speed limit through a major American city, pulled over by a cop in a speed trap. Cop takes his license registration, goes back to the patrol car, runs him, comes back, looks in the window, and sees a tin of Alp on the dashboard. Pauses, stunned, says to my friend, "You use Alp?" "Yeah, I do," says my friend. "So do I," says the cop. "We all do." He looks at my friend thoughtfully and goes, "Drive safely, sir," and hands back his license and registration. No ticket. So in 2 days, he's saved from a tragic marriage to a girl who doesn't like Alp and a speeding ticket. All true. It's more than a nicotine patch.
So, Tom, they're saying there's 70 countries in negotiations and like 34 that are about to sign. Do you believe that, or is that Trumpism? Kind of, you know what I mean?
I definitely think. Look, most countries. Let's take Europe away from this for a minute. Most countries act within their own self-interest, right?
Sure.
So India has a lot to gain from this. A lot to gain in textiles, in precision manufacturing. They have a ton to gain. Vietnam,
from China, right?
Yeah,
because of
Exactly.
manufacturing coming out. Yeah.
Correct. Vietnam has a lot to gain, right?
Mhm.
I don't think that it's BS. I think it's definitely true. I think, you're dealing with these unelected bureaucrats in Europe, like von der Leyen, who's running
Yeah.
around saying we're going to do all these deals with China, and they don't act in their own self-interest. I mean, Europe is on like a civilizational suicide.
Well, they're Manchurian candidates. I mean, they're vassal
Canada,
states.
same. Canada's not acting in the best interest of its own citizenry at all.
Yeah.
Right. So I think
yeah.
that's definitely true. I think there's a lot of countries who are going to try and do a tariff deal with us. I think China's putting out I've seen so much propaganda coming out of China. I mean, it's just hilarious. These guys are like, you guys don't care about your citizens. You haven't spent any money. I mean, like, we've spent money on wars, and that's a mistake. And I think, we've spent money on, turning over governments and doing bad things. China's spent money on infrastructure, probably a better decision, but they have the similar debt as we do, like I was going into earlier. And they're equally like a house of cards, and they don't have the world's reserve currency. So they can talk strong and say all this stuff, but it's hurting them. There's no doubt. So, but anyways, to your question, I think there's definitely many, many countries that'll benefit from doing deals with the U.S. And like I said, there's a ton of stuff that comes in through, like, in automotive parts from Canada and Mexico that's coming from China. So we have to rethink that. Do we really want to have that reliance?
Well, that was the game, right? We
Right.
cut off China, so you move it to China or Canada or Mexico,
Correct.
and
Correct.
they import the Chinese parts that way and say it's from Mexico.
Correct.
Right. So that has to stop, essentially. Let me ask you this, and switch gears for a second. At some point, bonds are going to be a buy, right? I mean, they're selling off pretty hard. If Trump gets this thing together, I mean, that's going to be a trade. Do you agree?
I think that the linchpin on this whole thing is the Fed cutting rates, to be honest with you. And I think the Fed is run by a bunch of globalist-minded people. I think
they're not working for us either.
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, the San Francisco Fed governor said a week before SBV that the biggest risk to the system was climate change.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have that mentality, you're not even focused on hitting the ball, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, but importantly, rates need to come down on the short end so that people will move to the longer dated stuff. And it's not just foreigners. And, I talked to some of my friends who, manage money in bonds, and they're all scared to buy 10 years, and out because of the duration risk, right? I mean, you get a yield shift and you get killed, your capital gets killed. So that's a concern. So I think the Fed really needs to cut rates. And, this whole bout between Trump and Powell, last week, Powell gave a speech on Thursday and basically assailed every single one of Trump's policies. That's not what he should be doing. That's not at all what he should be doing. So the guy hates Trump. He's going to make it as hard for Trump as possible. But if we want bonds to go, I mean, I think if you're an individual investor, you look at real yields, which is the yield minus the inflation. The bonds are trading at 27 basis points. And the last time I looked, US 10 years around 220. So that's a no-brainer. Like, the US is not going to default on its debt. There's a lot of things, a lot of levers that the Treasury has that I think they're working on. And
Investments talked about that. He's going to do some stuff if Powell doesn't.
I mean, he can get rid of the supplemental leverage ratio. Well, he can't. The Fed can, but they can lobby them to do it. And there's no real reason they shouldn't do it. He can do, something to make it more attractive for banks to buy longer dated bonds in terms of, like, allowing them to use those bonds and fund at face value or at par value of those bonds. He can also buy back off the run bonds that are trading at huge discounts and actually eliminate debt. There's a lot of 10-year, 20-year, 30-year stuff, mostly in the 20-year, 30-year buckets, that are off the run that are trading at 50 cents on the dollar, right? If the Fed cuts, anything meaningful to sort of neutral, they can buy those back and reissue them, and they're paying the same interest with less the outstanding principal. So
interesting. So I used to do a lot of business offshore in like Bermuda and Cayman and Guernsey with the captive insurance companies and their bond portfolios. I mean, they're basically all levered out to cover risk. You know, it's very, but if you're a bond manager and you see, like you said, that 200 basis point spread over Germany, I mean, that's attractive, right? And if Trump gets his act together, I just think, I mean,
I agree with you, but
it's going to be a buy.
Bonds. I mean, I'm going to make a lot of people mad, but a lot of bond people are some of the worst traders in the world, and they're just mean reversion guys. So,
yeah,
you know, like when things break down like this, they'll start screaming and thinking the end is near, and you know, the U.S. Treasury market's done, and nobody wants to buy anything. And you know, part of what Trump's doing, I think, in some of these trade negotiations is, and I think this broke down during Yellen's tenor at the Treasury, but I think part of what he's doing is to try and get some of these countries to buy long dated paper in the U.S.
Yeah,
and you know, I think
the auction didn't go very well yesterday, right?
No,
poorly.
No, but well, bonds are doing better. I mean, bonds are better today, so they've come all the way back from like 10 years have come from 450 to 428. So, you know, we're kind of where we in the realm of where we were, maybe 10 basis points higher, but in the realm of where we were when this whole, you know, Independence Day thing took place. Not at certainly not at the tightest levels, but just before. So
last question, what do you think about Tesla and Elon? I find that interesting story. I mean, if he actually, again, if this works, I mean, Tesla could be a buy in here. What do you think?
I bought it before the earnings this week. I just thought that it was, people were way too bearish on it. I mean, there's a lot, you know, this AI thing again is, and all things to do with it, the robotics, the self-driving cars, people are trying to cast shade on it right now. And so there's a real story there. And I think, you know, Elon's going to have to be, you know, more engaged with the business, I think.
Yeah, and he will be.
And he will be. So I do think that, you know, Tesla's a buy. And I wrote in one of my friends' Hummer MVEs or whatever this week, and it's a nice car, but it's like $30,000 more than the Cybertruck and doesn't do half the stuff and doesn't have the same range. So Tesla's still got a superior product, in my opinion.
Interesting. Well, a lot to talk about. Tom, thanks this morning. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Anytime.
On the markets. We'll have you back. Take care.
Cool. Take care.
Bye.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
The pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. Stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down, and even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw it in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. You just pack a punch that, you know, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. You know, we think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay. There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker, stealing all the applicants.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I just wanted to highlight the ALP story, alppouch.com/CDM. The alternative to the woke Zen. We're told that it's moist, it's more flavorful, it's gentler on your gums, and there's more in each package. So why wouldn't you buy ALP instead of Zen? alppouch.com/CDM. I'm going to bring in Mark Bashaw now. We've talked about this story. He's a friend of the show. Mark, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. Last night, I saw the Hegseth thing and I said, wow, I got to get some of these guys on. So
yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
So he said the magic words, illegal orders. So,
he said the magic words. I mean, yeah, something we've known. I mean, like he said, we've all known it. It's unlawful. It's illegal, immoral, unethical. Something we've been informing our chain of commands through formalized official communication and how you're supposed to communicate with your chain of command. So they knew. Many of these officers knew. So we have many officers in the military currently serving known criminals.
I've called these guys out, criminal. I mean, you could go worse than that. I mean, there's
traitors.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they were working for somebody. I guarantee we're going to find out that some of these people were working for somebody.
I mean, let's take Evgeny Vindman for an example, the staff judge advocate in my own situation at my base. He's the one that forced me into a court martial. He's the one that advocated for a court martial. And then after they convicted me, went on his social media account and bragged publicly to the world on securing the first ever COVID conviction. And now he sits as a Virginia 7 House elected member on the Armed Services Committee. So
jeez, go figure. So there was, as I said on X, there's joy in Mudville last night. I mean, I saw the chats just light up. I mean, there's been thousands of guys fighting this fight for a long time. You're very organized. You're very angry. You want justice. I wouldn't say revenge, maybe, but you want justice. You want the right thing to be done for people. Like they tried to bring people back in, and then they said, "Well, you have to admit that you did it, voluntarily or whatever."
Yeah.
I mean, as discharges, that was just horrific. How did that happen? Do you think?
I mean, you're talking about a bureaucratic mess. So they're all receiving these lawful orders from commander in chief, and then on to SecDef. And then they're putting their own biased twist on it, in my opinion. Again, this is speculation. I don't know this to be true, but that's my assumption, is they're putting their twist on it and then pushing it out to the force and then getting called out on social media, and the Secretary of Defense having to give public statements about the mess that he's having to deal with.
So where do you guys go from here? I know, again, you're very organized. There's a lot of you. I see it in the conversations. What's the next step for you guys?
The next step is people need to, if they haven't already, file their DD 149s, push their Board of Military Corrections packages to their branch, whatever branch that may be, and get them to do what they need to do. And at that point in time, each branch would have the evidence of unlawful activity within their chain of command, specific names of commanders, specific chain of commands who violated the law, violated military regulations and all that. And so that's what individuals need to do. We have seen some issues in my own personal situation. I've seen some issues in that regard where I have printed out all the evidence, put it in neat binders, submitted it per the regulation to Army Board of Military Corrections, and then I get my receipt back saying contents not in box. So somebody took the contents out of the box, and so I had to submit again. So I'm still waiting for a case number, but that's what people need to do.
Well, they need to doge that stuff and find out who these people are that are doing this. I mean, there has to be a chain of custody of that kind of stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
So what about health effects? I mean, a lot of guys had some bad health effects on this, and have you seen any movement there as to, Hegseth's we're going to restore you? Well, you can't restore you if you've got myocarditis or whatever.
Yeah, the VA
about that.
Yeah, VA really needs to step in. This is a toxic exposure. I mean, people were poisoned. This is a toxin. They were poisoned with a toxin, and they need to recognize it as such and compensate those individuals that have all the documentation to show. I mean, we had one individual, staff sergeant, good buddy of mine. He had all these off-base doctors confirm that he was poisoned by this injection, and the military side of the house refused to accept his medical records to incorporate to his military side of the house. And so that's what you're kind of dealing with, but the VA needs to step up in this regard.
Well, I was really critical against my classmate at the Air Force Academy, who was a superintendent, Lieutenant General, I'm spacing on his name now, Richard Clark, who forced this vaccine, in quotes, on people, even though there was plenty of evidence that this was harming people at the time. And then, then they had a guy drop dead with a blood clot walking across the terrazzo. And then, and then they said, it was a football injury. I mean, there was, this is, you can really scale this up. I mean, I'm not accusing him of murder or anything, but I mean, there is really bad consequences from this stuff, and people have to be held accountable. And it was very obvious he made the wrong decision.
Absolutely. And a lot of them got served with the evidence, with the data, with the laws. And for those executive officers, public servants in general who got served with the law, it's like you had a responsibility, and you completely it's not negligence at that point. It's complete I call it knowingly. They knowingly violated the law. They knowingly attacked their subordinates.
So what do you want to get out to the public, as this is going on? What do people need to know? Like, I had an email from a guy last night, young kid. Look, sir, this hurt me, my career. Who do I talk to? So I'm getting some of that. Where do people go?
I mean, people need to know that this isn't just the military. People need to understand, and many people do, public servants across the board, with even corporate men and women, right? Mm-hmm. The protections we had to prevent experimentation on the people were there. The federal laws were there. A lot of these entities receive federal funding. So I would say, gather your documents, get it nice and neat, and start pushing in your local areas, wherever you may be affected. Get it into a court of record, seal it down, and that is your record. And eventually, as time goes on, there's going to be this whole thing's going to, somebody's going to have to be held responsible. So is it going to be your principal in your school district? Is it going to be your mayor in your city, right? It absolutely is. But you have to do your work. You can't just, and part of my language, you can't just sit around and bitch about this. You got to put your evidence-based facts that you have already, get it nice and neat. Affidavits of truth are perfect tools. Exhibit it out, right? You have the evidence and do that. This isn't just your military. This is, the people know, and I've talked to a lot of state police in Massachusetts. They're like, hey man, the military gets a lot of attention for this, but it's across the board. And they're absolutely right. It is across the board. So you gotta press, and we gotta get those individuals who force this knowingly on their subordinates out of there completely and held accountable. This is crimes against humanity.
Yeah, no kidding. And it's been obviously that. What else, Mark? Anything else people need to know?
No, not much. Just, I run this website, Freedom Fighter 1776, kind of pro bono, after hours, volunteer type stuff to try to get this information out, connect people with other people, and share resources and networks. So feel free, freedomfighter1776.com, go check it out. And, don't stop. We have a responsibility as the people to stand up and and do what we have to do and properly instruct our public servants, and then put their feet to the fire when they no longer, are acting legitimately or aiding and abetting a foreign entity like we know some of them are.
Yeah, no kidding. Are you going to look to go back in, or do you have people what do you think?
I'm wide open to it. I'm wide open. I'm open to it. Hey, I asked for reinstatement. I asked for back pay. Lawfully speaking, I'll serve my country again. I got no issues with that. I frankly, I never stopped serving. They took the uniform off me, but I mean, service continued. I don't get paid for it. But it's just as important now as it is in uniform. And so if they want to put me back in uniform, do some good things in the public health realm, I'm all for it. But I don't know if they want that.
Well, that brings me to another question. We interviewed you a while back, and you were working on a transgender issue in your local city. How did that work out?
Oh yeah, so just found out today the mayor. So the judge in this case, in the District of Massachusetts, federal district, he dismissed the case. He said we had no standing.
Oh,
right.
Perfect.
So he said we had no standing, but this was also the judge that has been blocking Trump when he has been taking federal aid from these belligerent entities within that state, right? And so he's been so there might be something more there, but yeah, our case got dismissed, and we're kind of brainstorming on what we should do going forward, but we'll see what happens.
Are you using any like AI pro se stuff?
I use pro se. I get AI to help for sure with like the process of the courts and the educating me on how this process runs. It's all pro se. It's me, Brandon Hayes from the Natural Law Institute, Bill Mosley, who was a lieutenant in the Navy. So we came together. We're Massachusetts Newburyport natives to this city that this mayor flew this foreign belligerent ideological flag on publicly owned property. And so we've been doing it pro se. And so that's another thing for the audience out there. It's like yes, there's a time and place for lawyers. They're incredibly important. That what they do, they're professionals. Yeah. But there's not enough good patriotic lawyers to go around, so sometimes you got to take things into your own hands, and it's a lot cheaper to pay a $5 filing fee versus a $10,000 just to get to a certain point in the case. But I'm not taking anything away from attorneys and lawyers. Their work's important, especially the patriotic ones, but sometimes you got to do it.
Yeah.
What's that?
They're few and far between.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, man, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. We'll have
appreciate you having me.
Oh, man, take care.
God bless.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight, and then eventually I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
I'm David Cross, and you may know me from my election integrity work, but I also own U.S. Asset Management, an investment advisory practice. I've been an advisor for nearly 30 years, and one of the questions I get asked most frequently is, do I have enough money relative to other people my age? And while that's an interesting question, it's also the wrong question. The right question is do you have enough money to sustain your lifestyle for the rest of your life? This is a question you should know the answer to. This is what we do. Check us out at us-am.com and look for our big proud American Eagle logo.
We have foot, slog, slogging over Africa. Foot, slogging over Africa. Boot, moving up and down again. There's no discharge in the war. 7, 6, 11.
Welcome back to the SCIF. I want to highlight Nucleo Boost. This one's empty, but this is what we've developed with John B. Wells and his crew. They have a long history working with certain doctors. We interviewed Dr. Weatherman a while back, and it's really just a way to fill the potholes in your body so that when disease comes along, you can deal with it much more effectively. At the cellular level, everything your body needs, the building blocks at the cellular level. Go to cdmnutrition.com, check it out, and check the subscription out. It's much cheaper than the monthly order. So please go to cdmnutrition.com. And also, if you have a situation in your life where you need financial advice, whether it be a death in the family, a divorce, a sale of a business is a big one, it's really important you structure your finances correctly. And David Cross is the guy to call. Also, back in the day when I came on the street, they said you need somebody to advise you who's been through many bear markets. And David is exactly that. He's a calm, wise man, and will give you good advice, and he's not a salesman. So usassetmanagement.com, it's us-am.com, and talk to David. Easy conversation if you need financial advice. He's our resident financial advisor at CDM. So lots of stories out there. We talked about the China tariffs, but I want to bring something else in. Hold on, let me bring this up real quick. Steve Witkoff is in Moscow, and he is there meeting with President Putin for the fourth time, I believe, as the negotiations go on the peace treaty between Ukraine and Russia. We're going to dig into that, but I want to show this video real quick. This is of a general being assassinated outside of Moscow in the suburbs this morning. No sound on that, but for our audio audience, that was a video of a car bomb killing a Russian general. This is the second general that's been killed by car bombs, and then also the daughter of the Putin advisor. I'm blanking on his name right now, but she was killed also in a car bomb. So this is the favorite way to assassinate members in Russia, and it's this is in your face because Witkoff is there meeting with Putin. So you kill a Russian general who's fighting the war as Witkoff is meeting with Putin. So whoever is doing this obviously doesn't want peace. The story is on Tsarism.com, which is our Eastern European site, tsarizm.com, which covers really the former Soviet Union and the Tsarist territories, all the way from, San Francisco was part of the Tsarist Empire, all the way up to Alaska, all the way to Poland. So the site really covers news and information, culture, travel in that region. So if you're interested in Eastern Europe, check it out, tsarizm.com, tsarizm.com. Let me bring up that on the banner so you can see that, exactly how to spell it. Oh, that's the wrong one. There we go. So tsarism.com is our Eastern European site. So he was killed, and the point you need to take home is that the Blob wants to destroy the peace process. The people who are trying to say that they want peace and that Russia's all the bad guy is essentially the ones who are destroying the peace process so that the war continues. Really horrific. We're going to stay on that story. The next thing I want to talk about is China blinked this morning. They decided that they would remove certain tariffs up of 145% off certain products moving into China because their factories are essentially shut down. There's a lot of reports coming out of the ports being empty, no carriers going over to the United States. LA and the left coast ports in America have said the same thing. There are reports in China of factories completely closing because their orders have just disappeared. You won't see this in the mainstream press. And as Tom said, these guys lie all the time. All the economic data coming out of China was a lie. So when they say we're not talking with Trump, I don't believe that for a minute. So I think Tom Teague was exactly right on that. So China is blinking because they're hurting, and they have to keep these people employed. And if the oligarchy in China, the Chinese Communist Party, which is really a kleptocracy of criminals, if they can't keep their young, lower levels happy and employed and making money, then they could lose power. That's what's going on here, and that's what Trump is focused on, not just tariffs. It's a much bigger issue, as Tom Teague said, and we completely agree with that. And so that's a story that is going to develop. One more I wanted you to bring your attention. Parents, wake up, because they want to diddle your kids in Colorado. Make sure you check out exactly what's going to be taught in your summer camps for kids. And this one is sex ed summer camp for 9-year-olds. They want to bring your kids in as young as 9 years old and teach them about sex this summer. This is going on in Colorado. You can find this at the Colorado Free Press, which is our Colorado paper. And you can find all these papers at the top menu on cdm.press. You can drive down and look at all the different areas of the world we cover. And this story is just horrific. I mean, can you imagine dropping your kid off at summer camp and they coming back and telling you 9 years old they talked about sex today? Unbelievable. But that's the world we're living in. CDM.press, by the way, is a global wire service. We are all over the world. I stay up all night long. Essentially, we don't sleep very much here, and we get reports all night and into the morning about what's happening around the world. We put those out as quickly and as neatly and as in the most informative way that we can. And it's really important for us to provide high quality information. We try not to just overwhelm you with stuff, but bring you stuff that is really important that you need to know. And that's the basis of this show, is to bring you stuff you need to know so you're the smartest person in the room around the water cooler, if you will, at work or at the family table at night. You know what's going on in the world, because you're not going to get what you get here anywhere else. You'll get part of it, but not all of it. We're on podcasts. Check any podcast provider. You can listen to us on the way to work. We are on the way home from work, in the afternoon. The show runs 10 to 12 Monday through Friday. And we have a lot of other shows on the weekends, so check that out, CDTV on cdm.press. We are a global wire service, and we're going to continue down that vein. The last thing I want to talk about before we go to a break is Steve Witkoff is in Oman tomorrow to meet with Iran. We've talked a lot about the Iran war and why it needs to not happen and how it needs to stop. We're hopeful that this will bring further clarity as to what the United States position is in Iran. There's been a lot of confusion and misdirection coming out of the White House. I think a lot of that's intentional as to what their exact agenda is. I do believe Trump does not want a war. He said that again this morning, that if he doesn't want a war, but he will if need be. I mean, that's the art of the deal. Witkoff is there, and there's been a lot of squawking from the neocon world that he's an idiot, he's stupid, he's a fool, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's going to get manipulated by the Iranians. We don't believe that at all. We think there's some very smart people at play here, and we want to stop this war because we think that it could be the end of the Trump presidency and maybe even the end of the Republic as we know it if we get involved in a major, major war in the Middle East. You saw the nuclear confrontation between India and Pakistan. I think that was driven by China. China's going to continue to drive a lot of this global instability as a way to stop the progress of Trump's agenda to stop Chinese hegemony and bring back the golden age of America, which we're all looking forward to. So a lot of stories out there, and we're going to try to keep bringing them to you. We're going to be back at the top of the hour with Joshua Klein from Breitbart. He is a very close to the Trump team as an advisor, and so he knows a lot, but also a good reporter at Breitbart. We'll be right back.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our CDM.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and Ira. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for joining us today. Hope you are enjoying the show. One of the focuses we have is on the military issues in the Middle East. I'm going to bring in Joshua Klein, who's a friend of the show and a smart guy and knows a lot about what's happening in that region. So, Josh, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's great to see you, Todd.
Yeah, you too. So we've talked and had a lot of different views on what's going on in the Middle East. And I know you talked to some people in the Trump administration. What's going on inside? I mean, whatever you could say as far as how they're viewing this whole situation with Gaza, with Iran, all of it.
I mean, the Trump, as he came in on day one on his inaugural speech, he wanted to be remembered, he said, as a peacemaker, not starting wars, ending wars. And you're seeing this not just in the Middle East, throughout the world, but again, specifically in the Middle East, you're literally seeing a whole 180. And this time you're also seeing a kind of different dynamic at play also. When Obama originally created the JCPOA in 2015, he completely left Israel out of the negotiations. He left the Arab world out of the negotiations. This time around, interestingly enough, I mean, Israel is definitely very nervous about the talks that are going on, but they're up to date. There was a call this week between the Israeli Prime Minister and President Trump. They both said they're on the same exact page. He's also talking with the leader of Saudi Arabia. Leaders from Saudi Arabia were in the White House this week. In fact, he's going to Saudi Arabia after, it's the first international trip after, going to the Pope's funeral. So the region is kind of a different dynamic. And then we can get into Iran's situation itself that is also very different than it was in 2015 and how this is kind of all playing out.
So it looks like Trump is looking to set some kind of deal that gives them a civilian nuclear capability without them being able to process into a bomb. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going every which way to try and avoid military action. So yeah, basically, I mean, Iran has come out and declared that's their red line, which is fine. I mean, literally, if it's other nations do have peaceful nuclear reactors. Actually, Saudi Arabia is about to get one from America, which has kind of gone under the radar in the past couple of weeks. But I mean, if it is possible to actually reach that kind of deal. I wouldn't call it a Libya-style deal because there would be nothing at that point. But if it was literally up to that point, I think actually this can go down as historic. I mean, and this is
Yeah.
something that I think Trump really, really wants.
And then when you get that done, then, I mean, look at the economics. I mean, where do you see the Middle East go? I mean, it could explode economically if you solve this issue. Am I right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, the entire Middle East would literally explode. I mean, you would probably literally interview, I think, came out today with Trump, with Time Magazine, talking about Saudi Arabia on the cusp of possibly making a deal with Israel to become part of the Abraham Accords. So, I mean, we already saw this process kind of on play during the first 4 years of the Trump administration, where things that nobody ever imagined, peace between the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco and Israel. So yeah, I mean, the region is literally ready and wants to explode. And if this were to happen, the only thing standing in that way is Iran and its nuclear activities. So if this were to somehow be negotiated, then this would be amazing. I mean, somewhat to a degree for the Iranian people, which I think is kind of being left out of this discussion a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, for the overall region, it would definitely be a huge plus if this can be done without military action.
Well, let me ask you this: Is Netanyahu on board with that? I mean, would he be disappointed if we didn't attack Iran or joint mission with Israel and U.S. forces?
I mean, his ultimate goal is to say, as long as Iran does not pose a nuclear, threat to Israel or the world, he's fine with how you get to that end. So it's not like he's, obsessed on the means of attacking Iran. I mean, he said straight up, if Iran and America can reach an agreement where they're not a nuclear threat, then that would be great. But, they're definitely, I will not lie to you, behind the scenes, and it's public reporting just came out yesterday and today, Israel is definitely very nervous about these negotiations.
Yeah.
But rightfully so. I mean, this has been, it's an existential issue for them, and they really want to make sure that this is not 99.9%, but 100% verified, complete dismantlement of the program. And we've seen some unfortunate, I mean, I wouldn't call it unfortunate, we've seen some conflicting statements from members of the Trump administration of that, of it being a complete, dismantlement or more of a verification, Obama light, kind of deal. So, but I think, Trump came out even today and yesterday and reiterated, he's talking about fully making sure that there is no nuclear program. And, if not, then he said he's willing to go to option B. He'd rather not.
Yeah, he did say that. I mean, and a lot of this is Trumpism, right? I mean, it's the art of the deal. It's his style, throwing out a lot of different things and see what sticks. Staying on Netanyahu, what's going on with Qatargate inside Israel? Is that a thing or is it not? Or is it going to go away?
I mean, there is to talk about deep states. My God, I mean, think of it, America thinks it has it bad, which it does. Israel has such a deep state on so many. It's literally insane if people understood the way that the Israeli system is. So yeah, I actually personally know, unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, I know these people, but the unfortunate situation they're in. This is like persecution on the Trump type of level that we've seen in America. Just complete lawfare that would never go on if it was any other leader than him. So, I mean, I'd like to say that, yes, this would go away and it should go away. I mean, but given the way that the kind of literally that I wouldn't even call it a deep state. It's literally the Israeli system is set up for any strong right-wing leader. They come and railroad them, destroy any members of their administration. So I personally know some of these players, and it's literally a joke. It's something that I'm not going to get into all the details because it's going to take a while, but it's something in America that would be seen as, wow, I mean, persecution, lawfare beyond belief. So, but they're doing this because it's hindering him and Netanyahu and his ability to really lead the country in a very strong way. The stronger he usually gets, the more opposition is thrown at his way. So I guess on the one hand, it's a good sign, but on the other hand, it's definitely negative that the system is the way it is.
Well, there's a lot of stress over the hostages. How do you see that playing out? I mean, obviously, Israel wants to remove Hamas from Gaza, at least in the influence, but there's a big segment of the population that wants to focus on the hostages. I mean, where do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I mean, so right now they're down to, I mean, there's 24 about assessed living hostages. They're all
Mhm.
about, males under the age of 35. And then the rest, so in total, there's 59. And then the other 34 are confirmed, unfortunately, dead bodies,
Mhm.
which is kind of a sadistic thing. I mean, my God, who holds on to civilian dead bodies
Yeah,
easily?
I've always wondered about that. How do they keep bodies for, like, years? Do they don't freeze them, so what do they just decay and they bring back what's
Oh,
left?
it's disgusting. I mean, if
Yeah.
I've read some of these stories of how they found the bodies. Yeah, I mean, some of them are just literally left in tunnels.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're found decayed.
Mhm.
Some of them they actually bury in to make it
Mhm.
harder for Israel to find. They'll bury it in like huge graveyards with other bodies, Palestinian
Mhm.
bodies. Um, so, I mean, yeah,
Mm.
how this plays out. I mean, actually, Bibi, the Prime Minister of Israel, gave a huge speech on Saturday night or Sunday night in Israel, saying that again the priority is the dismantlement of Hamas. He
Mhm.
actually kind of hinted at, or was pretty direct over the return of the remaining hostages at this point.
Mhm.
I mean, they've bent over every which way backwards to try and make a deal with Hamas, literally give them golden parachutes to literally leave the country with millions of dollars, be millionaires, live in Qatar for the rest of their lives. But they're not there at that point. So the
Hmm.
only other option Israel is left with is continued military operations. I mean, this whole thing can be over with. Again, people think Israel does not want to be in Gaza. Trust me, I'm telling you, they do not want to be in Gaza. The soldiers don't want to be in Gaza. They're exhausted at this point, which is kind of an issue,
Mhm.
especially now if they're going to have to start ramping it up. But yeah, I mean, I think that Israel, as now it became public, there were plans that Israel and America were on the cusp of actually about to attack Iran in the beginning
Mhm.
of this coming month, May. I think so. Their military posture was kind of adjusted for that kind of scenario in the next couple of weeks, but and it's still actually on very high alert. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's expensive and it's stressful and it's, it uses a lot of resources to keep
oh
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, people don't understand. Yeah, it's you have to be on the ready to what it means to be on the ready 24/7, and especially Air Force resources are usually
Yeah.
one of the most expensive to keep
Yeah.
on the ready on that
Yeah,
and on the scale that it needs to be on.
to keep those planes ready to roll is a big deal. I read a fact that only 25% of the tunnels in Gaza were destroyed. Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but then again, keep in mind that there's I think that they said there's close to 3,000 miles of tunnels
Mhm.
underground, and Gaza, keep in mind, is 36 square miles in total, the entire
Mhm.
area. I mean, it's bigger than the entire, the London Metro, the New York Metro. So yeah, I mean, it is about 25%. It is very difficult to get rid of tunnels. I don't
Yeah.
know if you've ever had John Spencer on. He's talked about this. He's a specialist in urban warfare and these types of things. Really, how difficult it is to actually destroy that level and amount of tunnels. So
Yeah.
25% is not a lot, but it is a lot in the sense of what it takes to destroy these tunnels. And that 25% also is like more important attack tunnels, things that were going more
Yeah,
from
along
the
the
Gaza
border,
Strip
that kind of
to
stuff, yeah.
Israel and yeah, along Egypt. So yeah, there's still a lot, but I would say it's very dangerous still for soldiers operating in the area, but it's more of a threat within Gaza itself than
Yeah.
to leading to Israel or Egypt, to the bordering areas.
What about Syria? How does Israel see the situation in Syria now? I mean, I'm conflicted. There was some talk that they were trying to get rid of Assad or involved in that effort, and now they're worried about the Islamic Jihadi, face of with the regime. What do you think?
I mean, actually, it's a lot of people don't understand. So, actually, Turkey was really a major player in
Yeah.
the actual fall of it. This guy Ahmed al-Shara, the one who's
Mhm.
now the reformed member who was part of Al Qaeda, now he's wearing
Well, he got
suit
a suit and a
tie.
haircut, so he's good.
Yeah, so Israel is usually very cautious with these types of sudden makeovers of people.
Mhm.
But American diplomats were over to there, I think yesterday, meeting with them. So Israel is definitely very cautious about it. And again, Turkey is the biggest problem right now for Israel actually in Syria. So Syria has, first of all, get rid of the Kurdish
Mhm.
region. They want to deal with that. They also have a very large population of Syrian refugees from the first the Syrian revolution, if you want to call that. It wasn't really a
Mhm.
revolution in 2011, 2012. I believe there's over 3 million of them or plus living in Syria, which Turkey. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Turkey would really want to get them back into Syria. So, but Israel's very nervous at the same time. Turkey was about to entrench itself in military bases, so Israel kind of bombed that to make sure that Turkey couldn't be situated there. So it's a very there's a lot of moving parts in the region right now, and in Syria itself. So I mean, we'll see how this guy plays out. I mean, so far, I mean, surprisingly enough, I mean, since the fall of Assad, I mean, there was some killings, very disgusting killings of Alawites
And
by
Christians,
Shiites,
yeah.
and Christians, which really
Mhm.
does not get the attention that it should. I mean,
Yeah.
slaughter. I mean, it's not. You use the term killing as if it's nothing. I mean, it's really
No, it was brutal killings.
brutal slaughters, cuttings of throats,
Yeah.
young children.
Yeah.
So the fact that that already went on is kind of a sign that you got to really be on edge for a fellow like this that used
Right.
to wear a keffiyeh and the AK-47 and now has a pen and a suit. But it has been somewhat stable. So we'll see how it continues. But it's something to keep your eye on.
Yeah, that was the T4 air base, I think, that Israel bombed.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. The
In
T4.
Western Syria. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I have a question. Israel is a lot of the Israelis are Russian. They immigrated from Russia. It's kind of a schizophrenic relationship with Putin and Jerusalem. How do you see that interacting with like the Ukraine war and all this? I've always been fascinated of what influence that has on Israeli politics, or do you know?
I mean, the population itself. I mean, there were a lot of Russians that did come to Israel after the fall
Uh-huh.
of the Soviet Union.
Mhm.
Anyone that's officially Jewish, which has a Jewish grandfather,
Mhm.
they used actually the way that the Nazis considered a Jew. So if you're a quarter Jewish in any sense,
Mhm.
it's called the law of return. Anyone
Mhm.
is allowed to then get Israeli citizenship. So a lot of Russians took advantage of that.
Mhm.
To leave the Soviet Union. But again, it's really not a significant number where they're politically a lot, creating political noise. But so it's on a higher level of just real politics between Israel and Russia. Russia is obviously a huge intersection with Iran.
Mhm.
They have deals right now. They're supplying Iran with the Shahed drones that they're using
Right.
against the Ukrainians. Originally, Israel really needed cooperation from Russia because they were really entrenched in Syria. So after the fall of Assad, and Russia has also, had to divide its attention with Ukraine. So right now, I mean, it's actually in a pretty decent place with them. So it's more just because of the situation at large, not so much because of the population of the Russian
Yeah.
Israelis
Okay.
itself. But which are interesting that a lot of people don't know about that there are a lot of Russian Israelis in Israel.
Yeah.
Um,
So, last question, different topic. The news business is shifting radically. X is becoming very powerful, and publishers are feeling that impact. At Breitbart, what's happening there? Are you guys kind of adjusting to that at all, or do you know? I mean, I know you're not the main editor, but what do you see?
Yeah, I mean, actually, thank God. Like right now, we're exploding. I mean,
Uh-huh.
our traffic is doing well. I mean, we're really very influential with the Trump administration. I mean, we put
Mhm.
out articles. I mean, we like to say we don't report the news, we shape the news. I
Mm.
mean, we literally do. To give you an
Mhm.
example, a couple weeks ago, the ambassador to South Africa, he was giving a speech on Friday Live. We were just monitoring it. He called Trump, a white supremacist. He called all his leaders a bunch of lemmings. And we just literally just wrote word for word for what he said. And within an hour, and this obviously was not coordinated, Marco Rubio literally picked up that story on X, talk about X. X has become the forum for delivering
Yeah.
news. He sent out a tweet to the ambassador to South Africa. He said, "You have till Friday, you're persona non grata." The
Yeah.
reason is, boom, he links to a Breitbart article. So, yeah, I mean, we're growing and we're definitely very influential. And yeah, X has definitely become I would say the communal area for the news space of where
Definitely.
it happens, and as explained in this situation, literally with that story and the Secretary of State using X to announce the ambassador to South Africa is no longer welcome in this country. So it kind of all intersects, I guess with that little story.
Josh, thanks for your time, man. And we still need to have coffee down in Florida. I'll ping you next time I'm coming through your way.
Yeah.
All
We
right.
keep missing each other. Looking forward. All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you so much.
All right. Ciao. Bye.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you.
Welcome back to the SCIF. Thanks for staying with us through all the schedule changes and producing on the fly as we usually do. But it's a live show, but we get it done. So really appreciate the audience. Sign up for our YouTube if you're a YouTuber. We're on there now. We're rebuilding. We got kicked off a few years ago. So follow us on CDM at YouTube and grow that channel. Even if you follow us on Rumble too, follow on that one also, just so we can grow the numbers. CDM1 is our Rumble channel. We put out a lot of content on both channels. We do all the live stuff on Rumble because YouTube doesn't like us streaming certain things. So we have to cut it out. So and we'll have to cut out Todd Callender's interview today on YouTube, which is, unfortunate. But anyway, follow us on both places. Also on X, we're really growing our X account, trying to develop that to follow the algorithm and become more important on X. So please follow us there, CDM_press. And I wanted to just also highlight my recent release of my first novel, Currency, re-release from historyofbooks.com. There's been several versions of this, editions, I guess, and this is the latest. It's such a prescient and timely and really informative book that it just keeps going. So find it at historyofbooks.com or anywhere books are sold. And one of the comments I get all the time is that feeling of not just not wanting to stop reading. It's a novel, historical fiction, faction, we call it. But really gives an overview, and you won't even know it, about what's happening in our world today, because everything we talked about is happening as we speak, and more is about to happen. And then the rest of the series will be released by History of Books soon. So please support us there. It helps media, and it's a great gift for someone who has everything. That's it for the show today. Thank you again. Thanks for all of our partners at Caravan to Midnight and everywhere we stream. And we'll see you Monday. The Georgia show is at Sunday at 2. Colorado show at 4. That's Eastern. And we'll also probably tape a Eurobites, which will be out this weekend or Monday on what's going on in Europe. A lot of content at CDM we put out all the time on CDTV. So we'll see you soon. See you Monday at 10 to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. Thank you.